13th Finance and Planning Committee will now come to order. We are convened as of 5:32 p.m. I would respectfully request that everybody attending this meeting mute yourself unless you are recognized to speak. I'm sure we'd all like to cheer on our Denver Nuggets as they begin their game tonight, so let's be efficient in our business so we can conclude promptly. If I'm not mistaken, and please feel free to correct me, I think the game starts at 7:30, if that is correct. So let's get her done. Please note that the committee meetings of the RTD Board of Directors will be held remotely via Zoom and will be audio and video recorded. The meeting recordings, along with the unofficial minutes of the meetings, will be posted as soon as practicable on the board's website. During today's meeting, we are providing communication access real-time translation, also known as CART. Anyone who would like to access this service should send an email to the RTD board office at rtd.boardoffice@rtd-denver.com, and a link will be provided. Para aquellos que quieran la transcripción en español, por favor envía un correo electrónico a rtd.boardoffice@rtd-denver.com y te enviarán la lanza. A live stream of this meeting is also available via RTD's YouTube page. I would now like to call the roll for the committee members. Vice Chair Karen Banker, who may be experiencing some technical difficulties, so I will return to that. Director Peggy Catlin.
Here.
Director Lynn Geisinger.
Here.
Director Chris Guchenritter.
Here.
Oh, see ya. Didn't hear you. Thank you. Director Matt Larson.
Here.
Director Patrick O'Keefe.
Present until the Nuggets tip off.
And I am the Chair, Michael Guzman. Help me please note when Vice Chair Banker joins, please, if you see it and I don't mention it. I do not see any other directors present at this time. All right, before we move on to public comment, I want to take a moment to have our General Manager and CEO, Deborah Johnson, introduce somebody that will be working closely with this committee going forward. Madam CEO.
Yes, thank you very kindly, Committee Chair Guzman, to members of the committee, Deborah Johnson, General Manager and CEO. It gives me an immense pleasure to take this opportunity to introduce to you all in this virtual format RTD's newly appointed Chief Financial Officer, Kelly Mackey. She joins us with 15 years of experience in the financial space, has a stellar portfolio, and we are just honored and excited that she was willing to lean in and take a leap of faith and be a dedicated public servant. Also, before I yield the virtual floor to Kelly, I want to acknowledge Brendan Morgan, our Senior Manager of Debt and Investment, for his willingness to lean in this transitional period to serve as our interim Chief Financial Officer. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will yield the floor to Ms. Mackey. Thank you.
Ms. Mackey, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. I joined RTD as the Chief Financial Officer effective yesterday, and I'm looking forward to being part of the Finance and Planning Committee meetings. A little about my background. I've held leadership positions in finance and strategy, focusing on financial stewardship, transformation, and strategic financial management. I did spend 15 years in Staples distribution and delivery business, one of the largest private networks in North America for delivery, followed by 4 years in technology at Colorado-based GHX and global cybersecurity provider Trellix that has a large government presence. I've lived in Colorado for 9 years, and my husband, who's a native of this beautiful state, and I have truly enjoyed making it our home. I earned my MBA from the University of Colorado, Denver. I have a CPA designation, followed by completing advanced management studies at Harvard Business School. I look forward to working with all of you, contributing to the board's goals and bringing my experience to the table. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We look forward to working with you as well. Can't wait to have an opportunity to chat with you. I would also like to thank Brendan Morgan for filling the role while we were in transition. His work does not go unnoticed, and he has helped us get to this point. So I think we collectively all want to send our thanks to Mr. Morgan. With that, we will now move to public comment. I would like to open the public comment to anyone who would like to address the committee regarding any topic listed in the published meeting agenda for the current and immediately preceding month. If you wish to speak and have not already done so, please raise your virtual hand or press star 9 on your phone. During this time, the committee will not offer any direct comments or responses. However, if you would like to be contacted regarding your public comment, please email the RTD board at rtd.directors@rtd-denver.com. I do not see any hands raised. Can you confirm that, Mr. Kroll?
Chair Guzman, there are no hands raised, and in anticipation of your subsequent question, we have not received any specific public comment relative to the meeting agenda items for this month or the preceding month.
Thank you so much. With no participants in the queue, we will close the public comment period at this time. We have 2 external entity reports on the agenda tonight. I'm really excited about the first one. Our first report is the external entities report from the State Demographer's Office and demographics regarding the RTD region. So I would like to ask Jack Kroll, Executive Manager of the Board Office, to introduce this item and our guests from the State Demographer's Office.
Thank you, Chair Guzman. This was an item that you all had requested following your February 1st board retreat, in which the Finance and Planning Committee and the Operations and Safety and Security Committees each met to discuss their work plans. This was an item that the committee specifically flagged during that time as something that you all wanted to learn more about. So I was diligent in reaching out and following up with the State Demographer's Office, and we have the State Demographer here with us, Kate Watkins, who's going to present on population and demographic as well as employment trends in the region. And with that, Chair Guzman, I have nothing further to add and would recommend we hand the floor over to Ms. Watkins.
Absolutely. Ms. Watkins, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Chair Guzman and members of the committee. It's wonderful to be here. I'll go ahead and share my screen. What I'd like to present today are our population projections, kind of the latest and greatest. And we update those population projections each year in October-November timeframe. And the projections extend across all 64 counties, all counties in the state of Colorado. And we do those projections by age, sex, race, and ethnicity. One kind of inherent trend that you'll see, or theme that emerges when we're thinking about population data and thinking about people and where they live and work, is the role that jobs play, or that the economy plays in demographics, or at least where we are dispersed. Jobs are people, and that being the case, there's this just inherent interconnection between the economy and people. So people provide the goods and services in our economy, and they also demand those goods and services. So this will be a theme that you'll see emerging throughout. A couple of key population, kind of high-level population trends that we've been seeing, and seeing not only in Colorado, but across the US and even across the globe. First, we're having fewer children, so lower fertility rates, which translates to fewer births. We are aging, which translates to more deaths. And those 2 factors combined result in slower population growth. Again, this is something that we're seeing across the globe, and even here locally in Colorado. With that slower kind of domestic population growth, it puts a bit more emphasis when it comes to long-term growth on net migration. So the importance of net migration, to the extent that we want to grow our populations, is more into play. Finally, our younger populations are more diverse racially and ethnically than our older populations. And so simply by aging in place, we will have a more diverse population in Colorado. Looking at kind of the long-term trajectory of population growth. Here on this slide 4, you're seeing the year-over-year change in the population for Colorado and year-over-year change for the nation as a whole. And I think some things that might be striking here are that we are expecting slower growth moving into the future relative to historical trends, not only in Colorado, but nationally. So by the end of our forecast period, 2050, expecting to approach 0.5% growth in the state and 0.1% over that same time horizon for the nation. Some states are already shrinking in the US when it comes to their populations. And one particular fact that I think is very interesting is that the latest projections suggest that across the nation we'll have more deaths than births in just 7 years. So come 2032, the only way to grow the US population would be through net international migration. Turning to kind of the headline number, the level, or our expectations for the number of people in the state, we're expecting to grow from the latest population estimate of 5.9 million in 2023 to 7.4 million by 2050. So breaking this down in terms of an average annual growth in levels and in a percentage terms, we peaked by decade in the 1990s with averaging an annual average of 104,000 per year during that decade. We're now expecting more in the ballpark of 45 to 65,000 each year moving into the future. So in each year less than 1%, and as we get closer to that 2040, 2050 timeframe, approaching that 0.5% growth. So thinking about housing needs for the state, transportation needs for the state, these are your headline numbers across all of Colorado. Within the 8-county RTD region, we're seeing very similar trends. So below 1% average annual growth, and somewhere in the ballpark of 30 to 42,000 people, additional people per year within that 8-county region. When we're doing these population forecasts, I want to kind of unpack our methodology so that you know what we're working with and what our underlying assumptions are. This slide might seem very complicated, but at the heart of it is something very simple, which is we are expecting labor supply to equal labor demand. So to the extent that we have more jobs than we have people, we're expecting to bring in that talent from other states or other countries in order to fill that demand. So that's really at the heart of our methodology, in particular for net migration. That being the case, there are a couple of factors that are very important. One, US growth is important in terms of economic growth and also population growth, in that we borrow those people from other states across the US. Age matters, and age matters in particular when it comes to retirements. So with more and more of the baby boomer generation retiring out of the labor force, we will need to the extent that that creates vacancies, we need to import talent in order to fill those jobs. So unpacking this a little bit further, when we're talking about population change, we're really only talking about a couple of things. First, natural increase, which is our births minus our deaths. Second, net migration, our ins minus our outs. And of course, that can be both domestic and international migration. So looking at these 4 components, really broken down into kind of 2 major components, our natural increase and our net migration. Here we can see the statewide history and projections for those components. In the light gray, our natural increase, again, births minus deaths, you'll see that historically we've had higher levels of natural increase. We were having more children and fewer people were dying because we weren't as old as we are now. But moving into the future, we're expecting that natural increase to slow. When it comes to net migration, a couple of key things to pull out of this slide are that over the course of the business cycle, we tend to see either really weak net migration to the state or net out migration from the state. So we can see this in the late 1980s with the oil and gas boom and bust. We can see this in the early 2000s with the dot-com recession and the COVID recession as well. The Great Recession bucked this trend, I think a number of different reasons for that happy to go into, but in the interest of time, won't right at this moment. But I think that's important when we're thinking about, looking into the future and potential downside risks to population growth. If we were to enter a recession, we would, based on just historical trends, expect less net migration to the state. So in terms of filling jobs, in terms of housing demand, lower pressures there. Here, an important trend to think about moving into the future with net migration, you see that ramp up in net migration that's projected. That's because of the retirees exiting the workforce. So we're expecting about an average annual retirement number of about 40,000 people per year in the near term. We're right at that peak kind of exodus of the baby boomers from the labor force. And that's expected to create more demand for jobs and a greater need to bring in talent to fill those gaps. Of course, potential downside risks to that as well, in that Colorado is relatively less affordable than other areas. So we have to be able to pay people in order to live here. That's kind of a key component there as well. So looking at the RTD 8-county region, very similar trends relative to the state as a whole. I think a couple of things to highlight, if anything, would be that during economic downturns, we see that kind of even greater net out migration than what we're seeing statewide, or weaker net in migration during those economic downturns. Looking at where we expect growth to be across the state, this map is showing the county population change between 2020 and 2050. And think of this as a heat map where anything in yellow, orange, red is growing, anything in blue is in decline. So vast majority of the projected population growth expected along the I-25 corridor or the Front Range. We are expecting that growth to be in kind of the more populated areas. These areas tend to have more economic activity, more demand for jobs, and so that's largely the driving force that's behind those expectations. I'll note that Weld County and El Paso County, we're expecting to see the strongest growth in terms of levels, population levels in those two counties of the state. One key assumption to go back to here, though, is that in order to actually support this growth, we would need a healthy amount of net migration to the state, somewhere between 40,000 and 60,000 additional people moving into the state of Colorado. I want to focus the remainder of the presentation, at least when it comes to the prepared comments, on aging, and that we're in the midst of a really interesting demographic transition with age, and that has a number of implications for kind of everything that we do in the state of Colorado. So why aging matters? Well, first, with lower labor force participation, to the extent that the population is aging out of the workforce, that means lower labor force participation and more competition for talent. So businesses, state and local governments would need to potentially pay more in order to attract those workers. We see shifts in demand for goods and services as we age, and I'll unpack that a little bit further. Age even matters our supply and demand for housing. Right now, we're in a period where we have our kind of younger adult population has seen a strong growth, in particular among millennials. And so when it comes to demand for housing, really quite large, lots of growth. And then with our older adult populations, they are aging in place. And so less turnover in the existing housing stock. So that puts some near-term pressures or contributes to some of the near-term pressures in housing. When it comes to incomes ebb and flow as we age, and I'll dig into that a little bit further as well. And aging even impacts our source of government tax revenue. And so federal, state, and local government tax revenue expected to be impacted by aging. We also see for certain government expenditures more pressures there. So kind of downward pressure on revenue, upward pressure on expenditures are the expectation moving forward. So let's unpack this a little bit. Here is a chart showing by single year of age the composition of Colorado's population by age and generation. And shameless plug for our website with a link here on the slide. You can see this as an animation kind of going back to 1990 and moving into the future into 2050. Really kind of fun, and you can break it down by county. So doing a little bit of a looking into the future, I'm going to fast forward into 2050. But first, I want you to focus on 3 segments of the population: the school age population, the working age population, kind of roughly our 20 to 65-ish, and our 65 plus population. So moving into the future, and I'll toggle back and forth. What we're seeing, or what we're expecting, is not a lot of growth in our school age population. Again, because we're having fewer children, lower fertility rates. Quite a bit of growth in that working age population, but we need net migration to support it. And quite a bit of growth in our older adult population, 65 plus. And that's largely us aging in place. Now, I'd mentioned this is a fun thing to look at across the counties, in that every single county has a very different age composition. And so I've shown in this slide and the next slide that counties within the RTD region, and just to kind of unpack some of those differences. With Boulder, of course, we have a significant college age population. With Denver, lots of 30-somethings, that working age population, kind of younger working age population. In Douglas County, quite a bit of a presence of families with your school age and parent populations. Turning to the next 4, Jefferson County is an interesting one within the RTD region, in that it tends to have a higher retiree population, or a higher 65 plus, kind of that traditional retirement age population. So depending on the age compositions, we see different demands for goods and services, different pressures, different impacts across the economies of these areas. So why aging matters? Well, our incomes, our income tax, even our sales tax, and our consumer activity tends to peak in our 40s and 50s, and then fall off in retirement. So as more and more of our population reaches that retirement age and exits the labor force, we do expect downward pressure on a per capita basis for income and sales tax bases. And so certainly with RTD, sales tax would be one that's very much of interest. So we are projecting to have more people in the state, growing population, growing working age population, but on a per capita basis may start to see some downward pressure with aging. I also want to highlight just that our preferences, our wants, our needs change as we age. And so when it comes to transportation needs, we will see those impacted as well with age. This chart shows by decade the composition by age of Colorado's population. So kind of a similar way, kind of similar story here, but a different way to look at it. Again, highlighting, pulling out that most likely to work, the 25 to 54-year-olds roughly. We are projecting a healthy amount of growth in that population, but that is reliant on a healthy amount of net migration to the state in order to fill those positions. You are seeing a healthy amount of growth among our older adult populations, and that's largely us aging in place. So when it comes to kind of risks to the forecast, I'd say potential downside risks, if anything, to that most likely to work population. When it comes to those older adult populations, not a lot of risk in either direction. What we've seen is that the 60 plus population in Colorado tends to like to stay here, and in terms of net migration, pretty much evens out. So when those leaving versus those coming in stays pretty constant. So that aging is largely us just hanging out in a beautiful state. Focusing on our 75 plus population in particular, this to me is important in that the 75 to 85-year-old cohort is our fastest growing in the state of Colorado. Over the next just 10 years, those 75 plus will have 230,000 additional 75 plus year olds in the state. It's a 56% increase just over the next 10 years. So again, going back to the needs and the wants of our population, they will evolve as we age. Those who reach the age of 80 and kind of even the 82 to 84 range tend to start needing additional care when it comes to medical services and even in-home care or assisted living. So with that change or that transition, we may see transitions in the housing stock. We may see quite a bit of additional pressure on our healthcare system. We may see evolving needs with our transportation system in that when it comes to healthcare, a lot of this kind of specialty healthcare is all in the Denver metro region. And so thinking about people from all corners of the state and even outside of Colorado coming into the state to receive that care could put some different demands on our transportation systems. Finally, I want to mention this in the context of even the state budget situation, to the extent that that has spillover effects for RTD. As we age and spend down our retirement savings, older adults who have significant healthcare needs are perhaps more likely to shift from Medicaid or Medicare to Medicaid or dual enrollment. That would potentially mean more budgetary pressures for the state of Colorado and at the federal level as well for those Medicare expenditures, Medicaid expenditures. This is in part important because older adults tend to have higher medical expenses. And so just thinking about those growing potential demands for the state budget, that might mean less funding available for transportation or other services. Looking at the change in that 75 plus population across the state, in every county of the state, we're expecting growth in that 75 plus population. The strongest growth in terms of levels will be in our more populated areas, but seeing it certainly all across the Denver metro area and beyond. When our populations in some areas of the state, or even labor force in some areas of the state, are shrinking. And finally, how might we better leverage technology in meeting some of these needs? Here is a QR code to our website. We are a resource to certainly, state, local governments, anyone of interest. Always love the questions that come in. Happy to answer any questions that you have. We've got a wealth of data. Everything that I've presented is available to be downloaded from our website. So please don't be shy about reaching out for your data needs. And again, thank you all. It's been a pleasure and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much. Ms. Watkins, that was awesome. I appreciate you bringing your talents and your time and the agency here. I think it's something that many Coloradans don't know exist within our state, so it's awesome to have somebody with this information and expertise. I do see hands raised, so Director O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. That was really interesting. You may have said this, but with the net migration of retirees, they're kind of bringing in wealth, and then as they take it out, they pay taxes, and they particularly income, but also sales taxes as they just kind of go through their life. Is there any kind of uptick with that in 2030 where we're seeing kind of a aberration in revenue that we shouldn't plan on being long, but could happen?
It's definitely a possibility. I think some of the key things to think about are what are older adults spending their money on? Is it the goods that are taxable, goods and services that are taxable, or not? And our younger populations do tend to spend more on stuff, on the taxable goods, whereas our older adult populations, it's perhaps more leisure and hospitality, which largely not taxed. Healthcare, not taxed. Even some grocery items, not taxed. So that's kind of one consideration to think about. But in terms of tourism-related spending and bringing in those kind of that just leisure spending, certainly would be a boost for the Colorado economy and is a big part of that.
Thank you.
Director Guchenritter.
Thank you, Chair Guzman, and thank you so much for the presentation. I'm just curious, looking in the rear view, how accurate has the state demographer's office been just looking back on past predictions to now? If you're able to answer that.
Thank you. Great question. It's if anything, we've projected too strong of growth, in that fertility rates have really surprised on the downside. And these are surprises that have truly happened across the globe. So just that having fewer children has resulted in slower population growth than what we've expected.
Thank you. And then just one other question in terms of the net, like needing migration into the state, uh, thinking about international versus domestic, is there much and maybe I missed it, but what's the expectation on it needing to be international versus just domestic?
Sure. Our forecasts don't break it out. Census Bureau data does have a breakout of international versus domestic, and the latest data suggests that we've had more in terms of international than domestic migration to the state. There recently was a change in the methodology that the Census Bureau has been using to estimate the international migration in particular, trying to account for more elevated flows than we've seen in prior years. That said, there's the potential that the methodology might change again in the future. But I think so. A couple of important things would be, immigration policy certainly would play a role in what the future brings, and just sort of that ability of Colorado to attract talent is another really key factor there in terms of what we can expect moving forward.
Thank you.
Awesome. I am so sorry. I really quickly want to mention that Vice Chair Banker joined us around 5:45 by telephone. I cannot see a hand raised for that. So if you are on there, then I can ask to unmute you. If you have any questions, Director Banker. Sorry to jump in the queue, but I just want to make sure that we're including everybody. Okay, I'm going to proceed to Director Larson next.
Thanks. I just wanted to know, are there any policies do you think that Colorado could pursue to increase population growth over the next, couple of decades? That, or at least can you give me your thoughts on that?
Sure. So going back to kind of those key components of population change, the levers that we have are having more children. So potentially policies around childcare, incentivizing births. That said, when we're looking at the experiences of other countries, no matter the policy, it's still hard to make that change to really incentivize people having more children. So that's one element. Fewer deaths would be another lever to pull. So trying to ensure that people are as healthy as possible. And then the third component would be that net migration component. So attracting talent. I think Colorado has, one of the things that it has that is absolutely not going away is the beautiful outdoor recreation opportunities. And that continues to historically has attracted a lot of 20 and 30 somethings, and I think will continue to do so. That's what we're expecting. So basically just kind of promoting that natural asset that Colorado has that many areas across the US does not. That might be one other area. But basically, yeah, it's your biggest things are births and net migration. So continuing to ensure that Colorado is a attractive place to live and perhaps encouraging more births. I will say, I didn't touch on this, but one important trend that we're expecting to see is family formation with millennials. So millennials are reaching, more and more millennials are reaching that kind of peak fertility age basically in their 30s. And that is expected about 5 years from now to result in growth in the school age population. But we are starting, we did see at the second half of 2024, what we're calling a little bit of a baby boomlet. So about 5 percentage point increase in births in the second half of the year relative to that same period in the year prior. So that might be millennials starting to do what we're expecting them to do, and perhaps even sooner than later.
Just one quick follow-up question. It's gotten so expensive to live in Colorado, and I don't know if kind of that's happened as our population growth seems to have slowed lately. Do you think there's anything we could do to address that that factor in terms of encouraging migration?
Great question. Our office has started to do a lot more in the housing space, so broadening our analysis to the housing realm. We're working on a statewide housing needs assessment that kind of works in tandem to some degree with the local government housing needs assessments that are also required. This is a part of Senate Bill 24-174. So we're building out our capacity, doing more analysis on housing and trying to identify really what the needs are, where they are, and what the nature of those needs are. When it comes to housing, to the extent that affordability is keeping people from coming to the state, to the extent that we can build more affordable housing or find ways to make housing more affordable, that would be another policy lever to pull. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Director Nicholson, your hand is raised. You're recognized.
Thank you, and I apologize, I'm not able to join on video at the moment. I had a question about within county growth. So, the numbers you reported were the increases by county, and obviously there's significant difference between Weld and Denver and Boulder and whatever. But, for example, for us, we have one city right now in Weld that is within the RTD service area, and the rest of Weld is not, for the moment. And I sort of wanted to understand both from that perspective and also, from like within Denver, do we have any kind of granularity on, what maybe if not specific, parts of a county, like what we should be looking at in terms of I think you covered certain demographics expanding more than others, but I guess what I'm really asking is, can we expect growth in Erie? Can we expect growth in downtown Denver versus southeast Denver? Because it very much affects what type of service we should be thinking about running in the long term.
Great question. Currently, we only do population projections by county, so just at the county level. That said, we could work with you in order to come up with sort of apportioning that or dividing up those projections across certain areas. It's a bit imperfect, and in an ideal world, we'd have the resources to do municipal level population projections, and maybe at some point will, but currently don't have the capacity to do that. That said, more than happy to try to kind of build out something that perhaps is a bit more actionable or provide some of that insight, looking at the historical data across municipalities and across the areas, very directly within the RTD district.
Thank you, Director Nicholson. Also, use the demography webpage. There is so much information there. It's a library, and it does break it. There's some information that's broken down to municipalities within the district. If you spend some time exploring on there, it's really quite a bit of information, but it's a lot of fun to learn. Ms. Watkins, I don't see any other hands raised. I'm going to give a shout out to Vice Chair Banker one more time. Did you have a question? I know you were excited about this presentation as well. We can unmute you.
Hi, Michael, this is Karen.
Hey.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, it seems like I'm always struggling with my technology here. No, I was listening, and so I did want to thank our guest very, very much for the information that she has given us. And at this point, have you talked much about travel trends and what we might expect? I don't know whether or not you've given any thought to what kinds of transportation perhaps seniors would use versus teenagers, and what areas perhaps RTD should be focusing on in terms of where we should plan future transit growth.
That's a great question. I mean, we've looked at this. Census Bureau maintains a service called On the Map that shows commuting patterns across the state, and you can see where people work, where they live, and how far they're commuting across different regions. And so that's a really interesting resource that I think might be helpful in teasing out some of that. That said, it doesn't give you a feel for the types of transportation that are being used, nor does it give you a feel for the age of the population and their preferences when it comes to transportation. It's something I don't have a comprehensive answer for you, but I think it's a really great question and one that we'd love to dig into a little bit more and perhaps come back or provide something to you all to provide more insights on that topic.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. A couple more hands shot up. Ms. Watkins, are you ready for round two? I would also just point out, Director Banker and I are both on the RTC with DRCOG, our MPO here locally, and they do a lot of research and work within that realm as well. So we may just invite them to come speak to us about that. This is the Finance and Planning Committee, so we are supposed to be looking at those long-term plans, and I think having this information at our fingertips right now is really key. Director Catlin, your hand is up next as a committee member. Please go ahead. And Joanne Rusha, you are on our meeting as well. Sorry, I did not recognize you sooner, but I will call on you immediately after. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Kate, thank you very much for your presentation. And this is more of a comment than a question. I was struck by the demographics and the aging population in Jefferson County, which is what I represent. And we've lost some services. The Senior Resource Center left, the Conifer Evergreen area. And I'm hearing from a lot of constituents that we have a lot of seniors, who have decided to age in place in the mountain communities. And we have very little transit service up there. And I guess I'm just saying that your presentation reinforced what I have been hearing, and that we have some definite needs in these more rural communities that we represent. So I just really appreciated that data, and I've captured the QR code on your screen and intend to delve into it in more detail. But this was very helpful, but it also is somewhat concerning. So thank you. I just wanted to make those comments.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Director Catlin. Director Rusha, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for having my camera off as I'm mobile, but I just wanted to ask Chairman Guzman, for those of us who have follow-up questions, I think this is a really excellent presentation, and I also encourage folks to look at DOLA's map functions. They're excellent. Would you advise, sir, that we email Ms. Watkins and CC you and/or the board office, so that way answers could potentially be disseminated to the body at large, or is there a process that you think is best practice for follow-up? And then I will follow your direction, sir.
Perhaps Jack Kroll, please correct me if I am making a mistake here, but maybe we can do that through the board office email address, and then that way answers can be collected and sent, or questions can be collected and then sent at one time for facility, and then when we receive responses, we can distribute that to the entire board. Would that be appropriate?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that. Go ahead and send them to the board office directly. We'll collect them maybe through the end of the week if you think of questions post this meeting, and then we'll send them on to Ms. Watkins, and we can get a response as you have time to respond.
That sounds great.
Sorry, I didn't mean to speak out of turn. I was off camera. I was just nodding. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had some questions bubbling, but I don't want to take up other committee members' time, and I want to process the information I learned. But this was great, and thank you for giving us all an opportunity to listen to this presentation tonight.
Thank you so much. One of the other things that I was able to communicate with Ms. Watkins before this meeting was about maps in particular and looking at the populations on the maps. If anybody's particularly interested about demography in your sub-district of the RTD, please shoot an email over so that we know and we can share that information out. It's actually intriguing to know just down to your district level what's going on, and being able to look at a map and visualize what groups are where birth rates might be more prevalent, and where our aging population is at, where our working population. So a lot of great information in various formats to use, especially as we do our public engagement that we have committed to as a board. Ms. Watkins, thank you so much for your presentation, and have a great night. You get to get out of here early.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll have you pull down your screen. And we will move on to our second report. This report is an external entity report for East Colfax Avenue Bus Rapid Transit, the BRT project. I would like to ask General Manager CEO Deborah Johnson to introduce this item and our guest from the City and County of Denver's Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. Madam CEO.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Chair. Once again, Deborah Johnson, General Manager and CEO. As many of you know, Route 15 happens to be the most heavily used bus route in the entire bus network for the Regional Transportation District. It traverses the longest contiguous business corridor in the United States. And more specifically and more exciting, this bus rapid transit project actually is the first true BRT project in the state of Colorado. And we're all excited about that because we are true partners as it relates to the Federal Transit Administration, the City and County of Denver, more specifically, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, as well as us being players here, as we are the direct recipients of the capital improvement grant that enabled us to bring this project to fruition. On screen here, we have Brian Welch, who has served as the liaison as relates to the project in the sense of being more or less a senior project manager. And we are joined by Jonathan Stewart, who is the program director for this very important project. So without further ado, I will yield the floor. Should Mr. Welch have anything to say before going on to Mr. Stewart, I would offer up a minute or so. If there's anything you would like to add, Mr. Welch, before we turn it over to our partner and colleague, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, General Manager Johnson, and good evening, Chair Guzman and committee members. I don't have anything really to add to what General Manager Johnson just said, and I would like to turn it back for the presentation.
So, Mr. Stewart, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Johnson and Mr. Welch. Pleased to be here. And let me see if I can share my screen again. How's that looking?
Excellent. You can proceed.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, so I'm Jonathan Stewart. I'm the program director for the East Colfax BRT project. And I'm here to give you a brief project update. I'd like to cover what the goals of the project are, why are we doing this, that's been 15 years in the making, then go into what it is, also a little bit of what it is not, talk a little bit about the project funding, give you a brief update on where we're at today in the project life cycle, and then follow that up with any questions that you might have. So yeah, let's just get right into it. There are certain goals that Mayor Mike Johnson has for the city and what he wants the transportation network to do. And basically the key goals for the city, for everything in the city encompassing, are for a more vibrant, affordable, and safe Denver. And we've looked at the Colfax Bus Rapid Transit project to see how that aligns with those, and it aligns very well. Really, for vibrancy, it creates more walkable and connected neighborhoods. Right now, Colfax is a state highway, as you may know. and it's really been designed for cars and trucks to move as quickly as possible, to move vehicles and goods as quickly as possible, and it's become a barrier for people. And this project is going to help ameliorate that. So it's also going to enhance access to a revitalized downtown Denver. And we're to create that more vibrancy along the Colfax corridor. We're doing improvements to 18 intersections. We're providing trees, we're providing pedestrian lighting, also a host of other things like benches and trash cans and bicycle racks as well along the street. So this is also a streetscaping improvement project to make the corridor more walkable and inviting to people. Also, it increases affordability in the city. I know that with the demography presentation, that was a hot topic, and this project aligns well with that. It reduces the transportation burden that people have to pay to move around within the city. It's also triggering additional investment, particularly it's triggering additional investment in residential construction along the corridor. Currently, there are 14, I believe is the last time I checked, 14 housing projects, many of those in the affordable space that are in various points of the pipeline of being constructed along the corridor right now. If you live in Denver, you can see those being constructed right now, particularly at Colfax and Downing. There's a lot of housing being constructed there, and there are some recently constructed affordable housing improvements that happened a little farther east as well. Additionally, this is a bond project. This was part of the Elevate Denver bond that was passed in 2017. And the city and county of Denver provided, and really the citizens of Denver provided $65 million in funding with our FTA Small Starts Grant and other funding from other stakeholders. And I'll get into that in a little bit. We've leveraged that into a $280 million program. And so we think it's a wise use of our resources. I should also add, given the audience that I'm in, there's not a single dollar of RTD dollars in the construction of this. And we'll get into that more in a little bit. Also, safety is another major goal for the city. And it's also one of the primary goals for bus rapid transit on Colfax. Colfax Avenue is one of the most dangerous streets in the entire city. So we have a large amount of crashes, also injuries and fatalities to pedestrians and cyclists along this corridor. And this project aims to reduce that significantly. So we're estimating a 24% reduction in crashes per year. I don't know if you've read some of the press about the project, but recently we did hit a low in crashes in a month along the corridor that has not been hit since the peak of the COVID pandemic when nobody was out on the streets. So we tied the record low for monthly crashes, and that was in the second month of construction. And really what's happened along there is, and I'll talk about it more in a little bit, but we've reduced traffic from 4 lanes of traffic, 2 lanes in each direction. And now where construction is occurring, there's only 1 lane of traffic in each direction. We do have another, if you peel the onion a little bit, we have another layer of goals and highlights of why this is a profound benefit to the region and as well as the area for more than just Denver. So we do have a goal of increasing the sustainability of our transportation network. This project does that in a major way. We're expecting to see a big shift in traffic, or really vehicle miles traveled, a reduction of about 30,000 per day. So that's 20,000 pounds of CO2. We're expecting to see a reduction, and that's caused by the increase in ridership that we're expecting. This corridor has over 250,000 jobs and 94,000 households and that's today. That's not with some future projection. Today, we have those amount of jobs and households living along this corridor. So we think that we can really, it makes a lot of sense to expand service of the 15 and do this bus rapid transit along this corridor. Lastly is mobility, is providing additional travel options to the community. Sure, a lot of us do have cars and can drive, but not everybody. So it really gives a equitable access to travel opportunities to get to those jobs that are downtown. All people can do that, but even if you do have a car, I think it's going to make more sense to use the BRT. And so we're looking at having a new kind of customer that we don't necessarily have a whole lot of right now. We do have some, but we think we're going to get more. So what is the BRT project? Where is this thing specifically? And I'd like to get into that next. This is a map that shows basically the project limits. There's 3 different phases to the project, or really it'll operate differently in each of these shaded sections. If you start on the right in that orange shaded area, that's in the city of Aurora. That goes from Yosemite east out to I-225, where it links up with the RTDR line. This is going to be have the stations remain on the side of the roadway, and the bus was going to operate in mixed flow traffic. So it's going to be very similar to how the 15 currently runs, although we have some optimizations to the bus stations to make it move a lot faster than it does today. The second area is in the blue area. This is in Denver from Broadway east to Yosemite. In this area, we're moving the bus stations. The 15L shelters are going to be removed. The bus stations are moved to the center of the roadway. And in the center of the roadway, instead of general purpose travel lanes, we're going to have bus only lanes, 1 in each direction in this area here. And this is the main meat and potatoes of the BRT project here, and where we're going to see the most increases in travel time there. I'm sorry, the most decreases in travel time. And then at Civic Center Station, it's going to move to the downtown operation. And in the yellow area on the left there are existing bus-only lanes in the downtown area. The Colfax BRT is going to utilize those existing bus-only lanes and have its final connection at Denver Union Station. The total length of the project is about 9.5 miles. And yeah. This is what the bus stations in that blue area are going to look like. They're currently under construction now. Maybe you've seen some articles about it, but really this is the bus stations in the center of the roadway. You can see the bus only lanes moving in each direction. Really, I'd like to add that for each stop, there's actually a pair of these bus stations. So you only stop on this one, you would only be stopping on the westbound. You would get off at this station, but on the other side of the intersection on the left, kind of past this screen, there'd be an eastbound station as well. So there's station pairs for each one of these stops. So we have our iconic archway with that supports a glass canopy that provides shelter from the elements. It also provides some shading. There's going to be artwork in that glass canopy as well. And then we have a number of other improvements to the streetscaping on the sides of the roadway as well. The trees, the pedestrian lighting. We're also having enhanced bike and pedestrian crossings with widened curb ramps at the station locations. Also, where we have the ability to do so, we're widening the sidewalks around the locations of the bus stations as well. Here's another view of what the stations look like. Gives you a little better idea of that glass canopy on the top, providing a little bit of shade there and some public art to make the thing look a little cooler, provide a little enjoyment. We also have a windscreen along the backside of the station there, and also to keep people from getting splashed by water or snow. And then you can also see some of the features that are located on these bus stations. We're going to have ticket vending machines, emergency telephones, trash receptacles, also an information display showing the information about where the BRT is located. And the elevation of the bus stations, it's a little over a foot off the ground. So it's more than a curb. So really we think from a safety perspective, this is going to be a big improvement from the existing 15L shelters. There's more transparency. It's also going to be well lit. There's also cameras on there that the police can look at with a PA system, so we can talk to people that are on the station as well. And with that elevated bus station, it provides level boarding that makes it quicker and easier to get on and off of the bus. So the improvements that we are expecting to see, these are estimates for 2040. We're expecting the full length travel time to be reduced by 30 minutes. And with the average trip reduction of about 10 minutes. And a question I get asked in public meetings all the time is, well, what's that going to do to my car trip? And so we get a lot of concerns from citizens about traveling in their cars. They don't want to have to be inconvenienced by this. And it really does provide a little bit of a slowdown, but it's 1 minute per mile. And really, I think it's you're getting a big benefit. It's like paying a dime in car travel time to get $1 in bus transportation savings time. And so it's a good cost benefit in light of that. So what's this thing cost? I did mention earlier, it's a $280 million project. We have a construction contract with Kramer North America in the amount of $197 million. We also have $7 million in other construction expenses. That's things like the ticket vending machines and some of those other elements on the station. We're working with RTD because they've already purchased those in other areas previously. We have $44 million in professional services. That's for the engineering to get the construction plan put together. Also for a program management costs to help administer this construction contract and the construction of the project. And we're holding $32 million in contingency for the project in case we run into unexpected conditions or if construction materials start costing a lot more than we originally expected. So the funding for this, we do have about $150 million from the Federal Transit Administration for a capital improvement grant. So we do have that. We're drawing down on that as we speak. We have $65 million from the Elevate Denver bond. We have $28 million from DRCOG, our MPO for this area. The city of Aurora has contributed $14 million, and Denver came up with $22.5 million in additional funding. This came from other buckets that we had besides the Elevate Denver bond. So mostly this is, we did get some funding from our Climate Action and Resiliency Office, as well as our CIP funds. So yeah, we have another 22 million that we needed to close the gap there. So this project is currently under construction. That may be hard for some of you to believe because we've been in the planning phases for this since, depending on when you count as a start time either 2008 or 2012. Or if you're being very generous, you could say 2020. But yeah, we started construction around Halloween in 2024. We are currently in the area highlighted in red. Basically, we are between Broadway and Colorado, and we are doing a little bit of work on every one of those stations in that area, except for I guess we're not doing the Broadway station at this time. So for a couple of different reasons, but yeah, we are working on stations. In fact, just last week, I think it was, we set up our steel arch structure at Franklin and Park. We hung that up overnight. I think that was on May 6th. So a week ago. So you can drive down it and see it, and it's really great. It's really exciting to see. We've had a little bit of press about that recently, which has been exciting. Positive press about it, which is exciting. And we're going to keep setting those up. We currently we're putting up about an arch a month, but that's going to ramp way up really soon. And pretty soon we're going to be up to one every 2 weeks. I think in June we're going to have 2 that we set. So this project's going to start moving. And we're in this area from Broadway to Colorado for now, but we're going to be expanding over to the Cherry Station in June. So we're going to keep marching, and we're going to keep getting these stations built. The expected completion for this project is the end of 2027. So we expect to go into revenue service in January of 2028. So I think we are on target for that as well. We're about 6 months into construction. One thing that we do think about a lot is how to minimize our impacts to small businesses. There's a lot of small businesses located along this corridor. And so we've started a social media campaign called We Back the Facts. We're doing a whole bunch besides that, and I won't get into it all. Feel free to ask me if you want to know more about it. But we're doing a lot as far as getting into the community. I'm down there every day talking to business owners, figuring out what we can do with the construction to minimize impacts there, but also what can we do to encourage people to come down to Colfax, because Colfax is still open for business. So I encourage all of you to go check out We Back the Facts on your social media channels, and feel free to post something. If you're down on Colfax, if you're grabbing a bite to eat, if you're seeing a show, feel free to post about it. We'd love to hear from you. So that is my update on Colfax BRT. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any questions.
Mr. Stewart, thank you so much. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and pull down your presentation just so that we can. There we go. Thank you. It helps me so I can see hands. Director O'Keefe, your hand shot up first. You are recognized, sir.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very proud of my speed at raising my hand tonight. So this might be a question for staff, or maybe staff plus Jonathan or Mr. Stewart. How you doing, Jonathan? Where are we with the federal drawdowns? I think the way it works is RTD does a drawdown, and then there's a submission from the city to us. Do I have the mechanics right on that?
You have it pretty close. Yeah, I really, it's kind of the opposite. So we receive an invoice from the contractor, we being the city. The city pays that invoice. Then we submit a request for reimbursement to RTD. RTD pays us. Then RTD submits a request for reimbursement to FTA, and FTA pays RTD. So currently we have drawn down about $17 million. And I think this week we put in a reimbursement request for an additional $9 million. So that's about where we're at with the project. I think we're a little bit past, we're past 10% complete. So that's about on target there. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask one more question.
Go ahead.
What's our plan with operations on the line? Do we have a projection of frequency of buses yet? And is that increasing, or is it, kind of cautious at the beginning and potentially increasing?
Madam
Thanks.
CEO.
So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Vice Chairman O'Keefe, for the question. Recognizing the 15th, I was going to say 15th Street corridor, the Colfax corridor was selected because of the throughput that we have with buses. Basically, by leveraging a BRT program, we will have greater frequency relative to where we are. That's the intent going forward. And quite naturally, before we even went forward with the project, we had to develop an operational plan because that is part of the project that enabled us to apply for the grant. And I just would take the opportunity just to share on general principle, any type of federal grants that we get, generally it's reimbursable going forward. And that's how programs work at a discretionary level with the Federal Transit Administration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Director
I
Geisinger.
would also like to add that even though we are increasing the frequency of the bus from the current 15, because we're having so much travel time savings, it's actually going to be fewer buses than operates today.
Awesome. Director Geisinger, your hand is next. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Stewart. That's it's a really exciting project. You had one slide that showed the sort of overall picture there, and it said widen sidewalks at key locations. It looked like it had both bikes and pedestrians on it, so it sounds like a multi-use or multi-purpose sort of lane. I'm just curious about the bike and pedestrian facilities, if you could describe those a little bit.
Yeah, so we worked closely with Dottie's bike and pedestrian team. We have a team dedicated to building out that network, planning and building that out. So it's very targeted. It's not like it looks the same everywhere along the project. There are not bike lanes planned on Colfax because it's a state highway, but there's a lot of crossings for bikes and pedestrians along Colfax. So we're actually adding 5 traffic signals that are only for pedestrians and cyclists to provide an easier way for them to get across this roadway. And we're also building out areas where we think there's going to be more pedestrians and we have the right of way. That is kind of the areas where we've been targeting widening sidewalks where we could. One place that I can think of in particular is at Ogden Street in front of the Ogden Theater. There's a lot of people that stand outside of the Ogden Theater going to get in line for shows, and we've incorporated that into the design. Additionally, there's some bicycle connectivity there as well to get across Colfax at that area as well. So we've just done thoughtful treatments in specific areas along the corridor like that.
Thank
you. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Chair Benker, your hand was up next.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for everyone's patience with my internet. It finally seemed to kick in a little bit. To go back to Director O'Keefe's questioning, my understanding is we're now going to 4-minute headways. Where are we right now with headways?
It depends on the time of day. During rush hour, it's at 5-minute headways, but it scales back significantly after that.
Okay, and the design that you've set up, I'm wondering, first of all, to make sure I understand this, you're going from a 4-lane highway to a 2-lane highway for cars, correct? Make sure I understand the schematic.
I don't know if I would characterize it as a highway.
Well, okay.
Really the concept is to have it be more of a Main Street kind of feel. That's how we normally characterize it. And because of the amount of businesses, the amount of pedestrian activation, and the amount of people that live right next to it, we think it's more suitable for that kind of treatment. But generally speaking, we're going from 4 general purpose lanes to 2 general purpose lanes, as well as 2 lanes for buses only. Also, there's still some street side parking.
Yes, that's my next question.
And we do have, at intersections, we have turn lanes as well. So that kind of gives a more complete picture. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think it's going to be an interesting experiment to go from 4 to 2 lanes. And then it sounds like some of the parking is going to be removed, but you're going to be able to keep some for certain businesses. Another question then, and I'll try to be brief here. It seems like the design, you've put the stations right in the middle of the street. Is this going to be safe for pedestrians? I'm just trying to figure out how pedestrians are going to get to and from and board the bus, and how's the pedestrian flow going to work?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to give a little more clarity to that. So the reason the bus stations are in the center is the net amount of lanes that all of the people that go to the station is reduced that way. And I know it's not immediately obvious. It doesn't make sense at first, because you think, well, if it's on the side of the roadway, you have some people that don't have to cross the street, right?
Yeah.
But then you have other people that currently have to cross 4 lanes of traffic of the most dangerous, or one of the most dangerous streets in the city. And so we're getting lots of accidents from that when people have to cross all of that roadway. So what we've done is, at the stations, we have curb bump outs, and there's only 1 lane of traffic to cross. So currently people have to cross about 60 feet of roadway to go across the street to get to a 15L stop. But now they're only going to have to cross 12 feet, and the rest is going to be pedestrian only areas. So we've increased those landings both at the station as well as shortened that area on the street. We've bumped that out a little bit. And so it makes it a lot safer. Also, there's a traffic signal there, and we've thought about pedestrians and making that an easier access point as well. So it's going to be profoundly different than the way it operates today.
Yes, okay. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Director Nicholson and I share the Colfax corridor between our districts, and I know he's got some burning questions. So 2 cracks, and then there's a few after you, Director Nicholson. You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. And I apologize for not being on camera earlier. I was unable to get to the computer in time. So this is all fantastic, and I'm really excited about the progress that's being made and just how awesome this is already looking. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit when it comes to the station design. Obviously we're moving in the direction where we're going to have more individuals making use of the ticket validators with scanning the MyRide app or using Tap to Pay by 2027. One of the challenges that I think people run into at the current stations we have is often the validators are not like right next to the platform. They're not in easy, obvious, running on, tap the thing and get on the bus kind of locations. Can you speak to how you're going to be designing and laying out the actual stations to make it as seamless as possible for people to get on the buses and pay? Because obviously the last thing we want is people running on and not having paid.
Yeah, so the ticket validators are going to be located in the front of the bus station. As far as the actual validators themselves, that is a little bit outside of my knowledge base. I know that we're running that procurement through RTD, although the project is paying for those. So any updates to the technology there, I think would best be answered by RTD staff. But we thought very long and hard about where to locate that ticket validator to make it convenient and also hard to miss as far as just getting on the station and getting on the bus.
That can I?
Oh, hold on, Madam CEO or Mr. Welch, do you have anything to add there? Or...
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Please.
at this juncture, we are working that through relative to what the scope will be, but for all intents and purposes, with any successful BRT program, they're in close proximity to the boarding areas. That's what makes the lighting so, not a lighting, I meant to say the boarding so efficient and enhances the aspect of people getting on and minimizes the dwell time at stops.
Thank you. Mr. Nicholson, Director Nicholson.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to hear, because it's definitely something that I think could be a hurdle in people using the stations efficiently. The second thing I would ask about, you know, I saw in the packet in a little bit, we're going to talk about the procurement costs of the buses themselves. And I've raised this with GM CEO Johnson before. I think one of the most important pieces of this project is making it seem premium to the customers. This is a special offering. It's something we can do really, really well. We're running, you know, we've got these great, you know, stations. They look awesome. We're running these great buses. How much thought has been put in so far into the, you know, the wraps on the buses, the interiors of the buses? How much of that is us? How much of that is you guys in terms of the branding? Like, you know, as odd of a word as it is to use, you know, the decor of all of this actually matters a lot in how it feels to everybody. And I just want to get a sense of, like, you know, how much of that conversation is taking place. And, you know, how intensely are we really thinking about how this is going to, you know, obviously with the stations, you've done a lot of thought into that, but all of the other pieces of it, how are we going to make this fabulous across the board, if that makes sense?
I might interrupt real quick and ask our General Manager CEO to speak first and then defer to whomever she wishes.
Thank you very much, Committee Chair Guzman, and thank you for the question, Secretary Nicholson. Recognizing the procurement, we have yet to put out a scope. That's the additional item. I think it's more appropriate that I talk about it at that vantage point. Don't want to steal Mr. Stewart's thunder, but quite naturally, we have all worked collectively and collaboratively, and the community has been involved with the branding. I will yield the floor to him to talk more specifically to that and can add additional color when we get to the appropriate section relative to the rolling stock. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the branding is something that we thought about for years. We have been working on that for a long time. It's based on community input as well. So really, we came up with the links. It's called the Colfax links. And really, this is a branding that is appropriate for any BRT run for RTD. And that's the way we've been thinking about this, is we want this project to blaze a trail for future BRTs in the area as well. And so we thought about that with the BRT branding. And like I said, this will be called the Colfax links. If you had another BRT, say on, I don't know, Federal, you could call that the Federal links at that point. And then the links would be the indicator that it is a bus rapid transit system. And so we do have wraps designed for that. We also have a contingency for if we end up finishing ahead of schedule, we can put those bus wraps on existing buses. But there are BRT buses planned by RTD, and it's part of their fleet replacement plan that'll be happening over time. So the answer to that, the short version is absolutely. We've thought a lot about it. I think that we've spent more time with the project team thinking about the design of the wraps. And I think that RTD has thought more on their side about the actual procurement of the buses.
Thank you. Director Nicholson, I'm going to move on. That was two. Director Gucci-Ritter, your turn.
Thank you, Chairman Guzman, and thank you, Mr. Stewart, for the presentation. My question is just based on the business impact that's occurred throughout this construction. As we look forward to any future BRT projects, is there any lessons learned that we would apply to those projects, or I'll end my question.
Yeah, I thought we're already learning. We're already making adjustments to the construction of this project based on the feedback that we've gotten so far just at the beginning of this project. Right now, we're really intensely on the south side of the street between Colorado and Broadway. And so we've kind of taken some of the lessons we've learned there to adjust what the Colorado to Yosemite segment is going to look like. And one thing that we've noticed is when we're working on the stations in the center of the roadway, we have a couple of stations in that Broadway to Colorado area where we're just working on the station in the center of the roadway, and the closer is just in the center of the roadway, and we're not doing anything on the sidewalks yet. And we've noticed those businesses are not getting heavily impacted by construction. And so the lesson that we have learned that we're taking east from Colorado is we're separating out the work that's happening behind the curb to the building face. And we're separating that out from the station work. And that way we can be more targeted and work more closely with the businesses because when we're right in front of their door, that's when they see those impacts. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we're expending most of our resources as far as trying to mitigate those impacts as well. And so we're optimistic that once we go east to Colorado, that if we do it like that, then we can work with the individual businesses and hopefully for that streetscaping work, just get in, get out, work closely with them to find an optimal time to do it. And we're in front of their door for a shorter period of time. And so I think that that is a big lesson learned right there.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Director Ruscia, your hand is raised. You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. I also just want to thank the chair and vice chair of FNP for helping to put this together. At the beginning of the year, OSS had also requested this update, but our schedule was so full, and FNP and staff were just very gracious in handling it. So I wanted to say thank you because it is a lot of administrative work on the back end, and I felt that needed to be said on the record. I do have two questions. The first is, and please pardon my ignorance because this project predates me. Have we officially finalized which bus stops will be consolidated when the BRT is complete or as it nears completion, or is that something that is still in a planning stage?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the bus stops for the BRT have been decided. It was part of our grant agreement with RTD and FTA to get those finalized. And that's how we kind of had our planning was built around it as far as figuring out what our travel times are going to be and what the headways needed to be for the project. So yeah, that's kind of a long way of saying, yes, we have the stations decided.
May I, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you. And again, this project has been a long time coming, and I thank you for filling in that gap and being gracious with my ignorance on that status update. That makes perfect sense now that you've explained it. And this is also to whomever can address this, if it's appropriate for this item. So I was wondering if, like, we as an agency or in partnership with the city, are we thinking about making amenities and stop upgrades to stops near the 15 because for connection reasons as part of this, or I would say maybe a adjacent project, like as part of modal shift, or would those other stops be taken in consideration just more holistically alongside our bus stop and amenities surveys that we're doing now? And I apologize if that was a little bit of a meta question, but I've been wondering that for a while, and I didn't know how to ask that more succinctly. Thank you.
Madam General Manager, CEO Johnson.
Yes, thank you very kindly, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Rusha, for the question. So as we look at our system as a whole, recognizing this as a bus rapid transit project, there's a couple of elements as we look through a comprehensive operation analysis and then the ongoing work that we are doing with our bus stop amenity program. First, we have to ensure what it is that we actually have as it relates to the stops and amenities that are provided for those that are utilizing our system. This will enable us to have informed conversations as we go forward to enhance the network as a whole. So this is not something that's tied into the bus rapid transit project, considering what has been outlined as we talked about the CIG grant that we have. Thank you.
Does that satisfy your questions, Director Rusha?
Yes, sir. That was complete. Thank you very much.
Great. I've got two quick ones. One for all of us to just consider, please, as directors, how do we back the facts? I think it's important. This corridor alignment is shared between District C, District A, on the closer to Denver side. Further out from Denver, closer to the Aurora side, you've got District B to the north and District E. Director Larson's district abuts the south end of that corridor to the light rail station at 225. And so there are at least right now, 4 of us that are heavily involved in how this project proceeds. So for us to consider that. The second question, really a question for you, Mr. Stewart, is it looks like you are on time and on schedule. And you are working currently on 3 different phases right now, according to the map and everything that's publicly displayed. So are we looking at completing this project without any, I'm going to knock on wood, but also like we're making good progress, which is excellent to see, but is that real for what we're doing?
Yeah, so I could say that we are definitely on schedule right now. I think that we are slightly even ahead of schedule currently, but at the same time, we are way too early in the project to be able to definitively say, I'm not a tea leaf reader, and I cannot predict what might be underground. And honestly, that could be where we could find some surprises, and I'm just not able to answer that right now. Things look good right now. I'm confident in that, and we're on budget and on track with the schedule.
Awesome. To that end, we've already found old iron track from the tram system that used to run up and down Colfax. So thank you for the dedication. The cooperation with this project is amazing. And we know that DPD, City and County of Denver, council folks, and the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure are really working closely with RTD on this portion of the project. And we will pivot and work simultaneously with the City and County of Aurora to complete it as we continue on. So thank you for the update. I appreciate you joining us. Directors, again, any questions that might bubble up after this presentation, please forward those to the board office before the end of the week, and we can transmit those, or board office, and we will transmit them to the correct person to be able to receive answers out to everybody should you consider anything else that you want information on. Mr. Stewart, I thank you for your time. I appreciate your dedication to the project and your profound knowledge on everything that's going on with it.
Chairman Guzman, thank you very much. CEO Johnson, appreciate you as well. I think our partnership on this project is a model for others to use, and I look forward to continuing that partnership in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, committee members, time check. It is 7:06 p.m. So we've got 3 action items recommended this evening. The first action is for a budget transfer for the articulated buses supporting Colfax Bus Rapid Transit Service. What a wonderful pivot. I am going to read what the action is listed here. It is for the RTD Board of Directors to authorize the transfer of $51 million from the unrestricted fund balance for the purchase of 47 60-foot buses. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have the movement as O'Keefe and the second as Nicholson. I would like to ask General Manager CEO Deborah Johnson to introduce this item, and you are on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the engagement on the previous item. As the chair indicated, this is a perfect segue. Just for everyone's edification, as you can see in the board report, staff did include this in the 5-year financial forecast, recognizing procurement status relative to what we need to do here at this agency, and keeping in mind there's only 2 original equipment manufacturers in all of the U.S. It's imperative that we start this procurement to ensure that we have delivery at the time of revenue service. Hence, we are coming to you asking for this $51 million transfer so we can ensure that we can start the procurement requisition process moving forward. So basically, that's it in a nutshell.
All right, directors, are there any questions? Vice Chair Banker.
Yes, I have a number of them. If I find it correctly, I've looked in the transit asset management plan. This wasn't scheduled until 2027. Why is it coming forward now? Why wasn't it in the 2025 budget? Was it? I didn't see it. I've looked.
Madam CEO.
Yes, as indicated in this board report, it was basically programmed for 2027. Considering where we are with the bus rapid transit project and considering that is a center running, we need to ensure that we have buses that can serve center running platforms that are articulated. And so as we're moving forward to ensure that we're being good partners and we can have vehicles that are ready for the beginning of revenue service, and even prior to that, to doing testing, we're coming before you to ask for this allocation from the unrestricted fund so we can start with the procurement process. So we will have buses, and specifically an article bus, that will be at the ready for inspection so we can have a complementary fleet going forward to support this BRT project.
Okay, then and another question. When Jonathan was talking, he said that he actually thought there'd be fewer buses needed for this project. And we currently are servicing Colfax. So what could you talk about the current Colfax fleet and where's that going?
So basically with, if I may, Mr. Chair, excuse me. So yeah, so recognizing that with any type of bus fleet, with procurements that are done, we do have to have a spare ratio, and there are certain requirements to which we must adhere. Buses that are utilized for transit services have a useful life, i.e. 12 years or 500,000 miles. Pursuant to what we have listed here, keeping in line with where we're going, these buses will be ending their useful life. We are taking that replacement fleet and ensuring that we are basically utilizing articulated vehicles that can serve BRT. We currently do not have any buses that have doors on the opposing side, on what we call the king side versus the queen side, because they're center running platforms.
Okay, one more question, and that is, why is it coming out of unallocated and not the capital reserve?
Madam CEO.
So I will have Heidi Wagner is here from our budget office. Ms. Wagner, can you address relative to the fund in which we are leveraging for this procurement?
With all due respect, thank you, Ms. Johnson. With all due respect, I honestly don't know the answer to that question. We'd have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Because the capital reserve right now stands at 261 million. And I just assumed that that was the purpose of having a capital reserve. So thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chair, if I may, just really, so as we talk about the capital reserve moving forward, those are for other vehicle procurements. And so we can double back on that response, but to the point that you raised, Director Banker, relative to why aren't they in the capital reserve, this had already been adjusted for the 5-year financial forecast that was captured because we knew this was forthcoming.
I would also jump in here and just say, these are names that we give to line items. It's all one account. We are one RTD, and we need to allocate money to be able to do the procurement, which is really the most important piece of this conversation. And we need to have the money available for the procurement to proceed. So if we If we need to move the money around, we need to move the money around, but I don't think we should get stuck on that particular verbiage when it's all going to come out ultimately of the same account. It's a line item change that we are being requested to be able to do this procurement. Director Nicholson, your hand was up next. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Guzman. So as I indicated in the previous item, very excited about this. I think that, you know, the experience people have on these buses is going to be one of the most important parts of what we do with BRT. And I think the opportunity to get buses that are really freaking awesome and just have a wonderful walk-on experience and are best in class is like extraordinarily important. I know it can seem like it's all sort of, you know, a bus is a bus is a bus, but I've been on enough of them to know that there's a difference. And so I really want to emphasize just here, and we'll be asking as part of OS&S, you know, are we going to try and procure with these a first-class experience that mirrors the amount of money and time and effort that is being put in to the stations and the policing and everything else about this project, and what kind of thinking is going into, you know, again, the interiors of these buses to make them the same kind of high quality experience that people get from being on, you know, one of our commuter rail trains that they get from being, you know, in the Denver International Airport or being in DUS. So, you know, maybe if you, GMCO Johnson, or one of your team can sort of speak to not just the procurement aspect of it, but what we're doing to think about how we turn these into awesome assets as part of the BRT.
Madam CEO.
Yes, thank you very kindly. So recognizing that we are at this juncture asking for authority to go forward, we have yet to do a scope of work. As I indicated, we have 2 equipment manufacturers that service the United States. Keeping in mind that we have a certain propulsion type we're looking at, there are specifications that we will put forward. Recognizing we would be working in partnership with Mr. Stewart and members of his team to ascertain what type of amenities might be optimal going forward, but there are specifications that have to be provided. Quite naturally, as you think about what we're doing, we wouldn't be looking at over-the-road coach quite naturally when you're talking about a luxury experience, and that is more in alignment with a commuter rail. What we're trying to do is provide efficiency for buses to move through centralized arterial with ease, and recognizing that we will be leveraging multiple buses that need to have a spare ratio going in. We're going to be very financially prudent, but not limiting what we're doing quite naturally relative to the operation that will be done. When you talk about the interior relative to seats and things of the like, it's contingent upon what seat manufacturers are available with the OEMs as we move forward. It may not be conducive to have fabric seats quite naturally. As you think about the corridor, we want to ensure that we can keep the buses in a state of good repair relative to cleanliness and things of the like. So happy to engage further when we get down the road, but yet we haven't started even the scope and the specifications that are desired. Generally, when we do something of this magnitude, we are engaging with certain constituencies. Quite naturally, those individuals that have disabilities, we're going to engage with frontline operators because we need to ensure that they have a working environment that is conducive for them being in a sedentary job. So all of those are typical elements that are taken into consideration.
Thank you. So I'll just say first that my constituents think the new vinyl is fabulous. So I think that you know, fabulous vinyl is a good. My question is you mentioned the 2 manufacturers we have. Are we only looking at diesel for these buses, or are we looking at hybrids as part of our fleet transition plan for these buses?
Madam CEO. Thank you very kindly. So recognizing the facility and fleet transition plan, yes, these would be diesel hybrid. Recognizing where we are and the limitations in reference to what we have with alternative fuels, this would be diesel hybrid.
So these will be our first diesel hybrids on the system, basically.
We've had diesel hybrids before on the system. It would be diesel hybrids, a larger sub-fleet, I would say.
Well, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
My apologies. Yeah, thank you.
All right. A quick question for you, Madam CEO, when we're talking about this bus replacement and the service that will be offered on BRT, obviously, that would reduce the need to have both a 15 and a 15L. So we would just be going to the BRT links system, removing those spare buses or end of useful life vehicles out of the way. And so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it clearly. Part of the procurement process is to replace what we are currently running on, what was it, 5-minute headways? That is a combination of 15 and 15L.
If I may, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. So as we look at our buses throughout, they're not designated to a certain route per se. They come out of a certain division. And so keeping in mind, when we were looking at the useful life, we procure buses in intervals contingent upon when we took delivery. So to your question, we know we're going to replace some buses on the current 15L15 that is BRT, but keeping in mind that we're going to have center running platforms, that these vehicles that will be less in reference to the current fleets that we have would be adjusted to address the bus rapid transit network.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Two more hands went up. It is 7:18. So quickly, succinctly, please proceed, Vice Chair Banker.
I would like to make a substitute motion that the appropriation for these buses come out of the capital replacement fund.
No motion, no action. Director Nicholson, you're next. You need to unmute yourself.
Trying to be too careful about that. Quick point of information. I believe I seconded the original motion and then very shortly after that realized that I am not a voting member of this committee. So I don't believe that I was allowed to second that motion. And I just wanted to verify with the chair if that means we're in a proper motion, because I know I was recognized as seconding it.
Well, that's a great question. My take on it would be I called your name without realizing that because you are a member of the board of directors. It doesn't mean that you get a vote on the movement, on the moved motion before us. But Mr. Kroll, any advice there?
Thank you, Chair Guzman. My recommendation is just to simply ask for a new motion and second. I mean, it's not the end of the world that you've discussed this to this point, but just to be clear that the minutes reflect that this was appropriately moved in second, given Director Banker just offered a substitute or rather an amendment to the motion that wasn't seconded, which was probably a good thing at this point, because then we would have had to have unwound that one to get back to the right starting point.
Well, I would have seconded this either way. So if it is okay, Director O'Keefe, you moved the motion. I will put my name down as the second. And we have had a good conversation. So I will ask for a vote. It sounds like I need to do a roll call, so please give me one moment to get to the list of names. Vice Chair Banker.
I'm a no. This was scheduled in the 27 budget, not the 2025, and it's coming out of the wrong reserve.
Director Catlin.
I'm a yes, thank you.
Director Geisinger.
Yes.
Director Guchenritter.
Yes.
Director Larson.
Yes.
Director O'Keefe.
Yes, with the hope that we get the Director Banker's questions answered at full board. Thank you.
I am a yes. That measure will pass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent. We will move that to the board. In the meantime, I guess it would be appropriate to request then, Madam CEO, if we could get clarification around which account we should be pulling that from, and should we need to correct the language that be shared with the members of this committee and the full board before the board meeting at the end of the month.
Mr. Chair, you have my commitment that we will do that, recognizing that we did not have the appropriate person due to extenuating circumstances this evening. I will ensure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our second action is for equitable transit-oriented development policy amendment. This is for the Board of Directors to approve the amendment to resolution number 002, series of 2021, which created the equitable transit-oriented development policy that permits and encourages the development of affordable housing on RTD real property in order to include guidelines for disposing of RTD real property below fair market value or rent. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have Geisinger as the movant, O'Keefe as the second. I would like to call on Chessie Brady, Manager of Transit Oriented Development, to present this item to the committee.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Chessie Brady, the Transit Oriented Development Manager at RTD. I was here last month to walk you through a discussion of this policy amendment. And rather than walk through that again, as fun as that would be, I have a few key points that I want to address this evening. So we received a variety of comments from many of you in response to our request last month. Thank you very much for your response. The perspectives we received were varied and sometimes contrary, which is why the language in the action is the same you saw last month in the discussion. So first, to ground us in why we're making this change, our current equitable TOD policy permits negotiated land price or rent. And in the face of last year's legislative change to the statute, that's within itself is enough to create flexibility and continue to encourage affordable housing development on RTD property. So we could do nothing. But the benefits of being proactive and setting guardrails around reducing ground lease rents below fair market value are primarily to manage expectations and streamline discussion and approval processes, both to the benefit of the developers who are putting time and effort into making these proposals, to staff who are guiding them through, and then to this body and the full board as they make decisions around ground leases going forward. And putting these guardrails in place will ultimately help these projects happen. And that's really what we're trying to do. So to go back to the language in the amendment, we're anchoring the policy along that 30% discount. Projects that exceed the affordability requirements at that anchor point could receive further discounts up to 50%, and projects that don't make those 30% standards would be eligible for less than 30% discounts. So to address some of the comments and questions we received, the beauty, if you will, of this anchor point strategy is that it doesn't lock us into any one particular kind of project. That means that income restricted missing middle projects, if that's what's needed in the jurisdiction, or deeply affordable projects elsewhere, could all benefit. The former, like a missing middle project, might get 25% off depending on the extent of the income restrictions. A very affordable, a deeply affordable project might get 50% off. Again, that's the maximum. If that project is also meeting our other goals, namely maximizing density, serving a range of incomes, which again could include missing middle, and including larger unit sizes, multiple bedrooms. So that 60% number is tied to low-income housing tax credits. That's a number that's recognized throughout affordable financing, understood by developers. That's not a number that we really want to play with. The 30% and 50% numbers are purely policy-driven. They reflect the fact that RTD is a transit agency, not a housing agency, and that it has a fiduciary duty to the region and taxpayers, but also that the agency recognizes it can play a part in the regional affordability crisis. So some of the feedback we received recommended raising those numbers. Some of the feedback suggested we lower them. Some suggested we keep them the same, and that's why you see them as the same as I presented a month ago. I also want to reiterate that, as I said last month, what we're looking for is a simple policy, the opposite of red tape. For this policy amendment to work, to get the housing built, to get riders living at stations, it needs to be flexible enough to apply to a variety of projects in a predictable manner. It needs to create certainty, and it needs to not be another challenge in the long list of challenges that affordable housing developers already face. One thing I also want to be clear about is that staff will always try to get the best deal we can for the agency. That includes, the first part of this policy is if there's a financial gap, right? So if there is no need to discount the property will not be discounted. We will always look at creative ways to structure ground leases so that RTD can participate in the upsides or any future refinancings of the property or sales of the building. We'll look at transportation demand management, parking ratios, everything that we always look at and evaluate when we're evaluating projects. Lastly, next month, plan to come back to you with ground lease terms for the large Central Park Station project I gave as a scenario example last month. So on your packet page 68 in tonight's packet. So the amendment to the equitable TOD policy will be put into action that quickly. And there will also immediately, it will start informing the conversations that, the many conversations we're having with developers across the district, creating potential for more development and creating certainty around how those developments can be financed. So, thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Just a note, I was at the Land Use, Transportation, and Infrastructure Committee today for the City and County of Denver. I have not checked in other cities and counties around, but this actually aligns very closely with the vision for Denver, as they are going through the same questions as an elected leadership body overseeing development within this city and county. So it would be worth checking with your local county commissioners or your local municipality plans to find out where this falls. But this is pretty spot on for what we're looking at in Denver. So if that's of any help to anybody, I just thought I'd share that. Director Larson, your hand was up. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I just want to say, I think that these guidelines don't go far enough. I basically don't really agree with the focus of transit-oriented development being on affordable housing as much as it is right now in our policies. It's not because I don't want affordable housing to be more affordable in Denver, but it's because I think developing more housing and doing everything possible to get more housing of any kind is what will make housing more affordable in Denver. I think our guidelines for deciding whether or not to negotiate or to discount our land should be based on the total amount of housing units that can be developed by any kind of developer at any of these places. Through the migration chain, 1,000 new units, if that was possible, because some private developer had the capital to develop it, would, based on research I've read, result in more affordable units being created elsewhere in the neighborhood than if we just built 500 new affordable units alone. And I think not beyond that, maximizing the number of units has the potential to generate more riders, even though low-income riders have a higher propensity to ride. That can be offset if enough additional units can be built. And while there is ultimately far more capital available to develop market rate units than there is to develop affordable units, and so the potential for more units being developed with private capital is there. Also, I mean, the luxury housing, the market rate housing, whatever you want to call it, that would be developed today in 30 years, that is sort of the market rate affordable housing of the future. So it would allow us to have more housing that ultimately becomes itself affordable in the future. And then also, sometimes the private market can move faster than affordable housing can move because of better access to capital if the project can be made to pencil. And further, in some neighborhoods, at least, a non-affordable project might be easier to get through any zoning approvals or adjustments that might be required as well. So I would recommend that we actually expand our capability to negotiate and come up with guidelines that for any kind of housing to be built, if there is a sufficient number of units and if it is set to can be credibly said to happen fast enough. Thank you.
Chair Guzman, may I respond briefly?
Yes, give me one moment. I would say, Director Larson, just in response to your comments, the current definitions for the building and zoning code within the city and county of Denver, where the majority of your district is located, do show and are currently planned to have a preference for building low-income housing, and the city has committed funds to be able to do that and work with developers to stack funding sources to be able to do this quickly and efficiently. And in being a good partner within our districts, with our local municipalities, it is an important consideration to take what the city and the municipality is looking at in terms of where they would like to go as well. But your point is well taken. Ms. Brady, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Guzman. I recognizing that that was a comment and not a question, I'll simply state that if we are faced with a situation where on one property we have a proposal for 1,000 market rate units and 200 affordable units, and both are penciling, that's not a, it's not that this policy doesn't have any bearing on whether we would go with the affordable project. That would come into, we would look at ridership, we would look at the partner, we would look at the likelihood of the project actually happening. So just, I would like to put your mind at ease that the policy in no way prevents market rate development.
But would we negotiate? Would we negotiate, or would we give the same discount on our land to a market rate developer for 1,000 units? That's what I'm getting at.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Excuse me, sir.
I got it.
Just
I got it.
personal privilege. No,
We need to maintain decorum. Please speak when you are called on and not out of turn. The next hand up was Director Guchenritter. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Guzman, and thank you, Chessie, for the presentation overview. My question is, if one of these projects penciled with a developer that was doing affordable housing and we met the financial gap, and then for whatever reason during development they decided to sell, whether that's bankruptcy or just what they decide to sell, is the person that they sell to accountable for the affordable housing?
Ms. Brady.
Thank you. Yes, and we would be the least of their concerns in that case. If affordable housing is financed by cities, by states, by the federal government, by banks, the cities would, there would be covenants in place. There would be many layers of requirements attached to the project that would go far beyond any requirements that we could put on in addition. So our discounting the rent would, our decision to have done that would be safe. I think I would also add that we would continue to own the land. So
Mr.
we
Thoroy?
reserve that.
Just to add to Chessie's comment, I think in typical, when we do this in financing, typically the affordability is guaranteed for on a typical basis on 40-year basis, 30 or 40-year basis on the financing. So again, we're going to be relying on, like Chessie said, the banks and the cities and the others that are providing that financing that provide that guarantee and that maintain that affordability.
Does that answer your question, Director Guchenritter?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a gentle reminder, in order for our transcriptionists to keep pace, we need to speak at a reasonable pace as well, and not over each other. So please wait to be recognized so we have a good transcript, as we have members of this body that are using the transcript to keep up with the meeting. Director Benka, your hand was up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two requests for information. Chessie, one would be, in your write-up, you refer to 60% of median income a couple of times, but you don't tell us what it is. Could you give us, in your write-up, a number, whether it's for 2023, 2024, whatever you've got available that you're using currently? So that's one. Two, do you have a map of the RTD properties that we are considering excess that might be up for sale or rent? And would we be able to get a copy of that map?
Ms. Brady.
Thank you. So for your first question, I'd refer you to packet page 65, which is a slide on area median income and gives examples
of. Slide is not in the write-up then.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. And then a question here. We're talking about TODs. And so when we first had our presentation, I'm thinking transit-oriented development. But then I started to think, would this policy be only for rail stations, park and rides, and perhaps large BRTs? Or would this perhaps be a policy available to any parcel of land that we own that's not necessarily near a large transit station?
Ms. Brady?
That's a good question. Our focus is on transit-oriented development, so it's park and rides, land near stations, near BRT. I think that I'd have to refer to legal to determine the extent of the policies.
Thank you.
Scope.
That was a third question, but the second question was, would we get the list of the available properties, I believe? And we can wait for follow-up on that one via email, I believe. Director Nicholson, your hand was raised next. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first, I want to just agree with what Director Larson said. 50% of 10 units built is a lot less than 30% of 100 units built. More is usually going to yield more affordable as well. But I want to raise the issue of affordable for our riders. One of the stats that I noted when we did the Title VI discussion was that 50% of our riders are below 200% of the federal poverty level. Now, I went and did the math just now, and that number is equal to, for a single person, a 41% AMI level. So with the language that we have right now, we're essentially giving no preference, or there's nothing in there asking for the level of affordability that our typical rider would actually be able to afford. I know that some developments can go as low as 30% AMI to try to be extremely affordable for individuals who are severely low income. We're not doing that here. So, of the other board members, I'd ask, shouldn't part of our goal with this to provide housing that is actually affordable, not just to the broader community, but to our ridership? And so to staff, to Chrissy, what I'd ask is, if it requires more than a 50% subsidy to get that kind of very affordable development, if it requires you to go beyond what you've been given the permission to do here, shouldn't we give you as staff the ability to give more of a discount if the result is that we get the kind of housing that our riders can afford?
I would remind directors we are not on a first name basis when we're doing our public meetings, and it is Ms. Brady. You are recognized to answer that if you choose.
I think that was more of a question for the board, and it is a policy question. If the board would like a greater than 50% discount to encourage deeply affordable housing, that is up for your discussion. I think that in a sense we are doing that. That 30% to 50% discount is where the deeply affordable projects, they're the ones that can get the 50%. Will that help them pencil? Will that actually get them to pencil? That would, that's on a project by project basis.
Thank you. Forgive me, Director Ruscia, Director O'Keefe, as a member of the body, I'm going to call on you next. Member of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm fine conceding it, but I'll go quick in my question. Ms. Brady, thank you for being open to the comments from the last time we talked about this at the committee. And this is kind of more of a statement, but it's something I think we should consider. I really would like us to avoid ground leases if the land does not serve some future right-of-way purchase. And my concern with ground leases is at the end of the term, the upkeep tends to fall off because the developers aren't going to put money into something that goes back out of their control. And some people I talked to cited Belmar. I don't know if that's true or not, but around Belmar, there's some pretty significant degradation, and developers are really good. We could do handback requirements or something like that, but that gets very complicated, and developers are better than anyone in this universe at getting out of paying for anything in their control. And so I'd really like us to avoid ground leases. I don't think we need land that is not a right of way. I would love to see it get transferred, and then hopefully the localities can drive upkeep requirements on it as it goes through ownership. So that's just more of a statement as we go forward, that I'd really like to see us avoid ground leases unless there's a purpose. Thanks.
Director Geisinger.
Thank you. Mine is sort of a statement too, and I think we could get into all the numbers and how we juggle it. I think our team here has been doing a great job in terms of the market rate housing. And I think you raised some good issues, Director Larson, but Ms. Brady, didn't you say in our last meeting that all of the projects being brought right now are affordable?
Ms. Brady?
Yes, I did. The market rate multifamily housing market is stalled, to say the least, in Denver and nationally. And all the interest we receive on our property is for affordable projects.
And no question that could change, but I think at that point, that we look at it again. I'd hate to see the perfect be the enemy of the good here, because I think this is a project that this is a proposal that is a very good proposal.
Thank you, Director Geisinger. Director Rusha?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a comment and question. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I commented to this topic prior last year that I personally believe that we should be looking into policies that, like, for example, would give a nonprofit or affordable housing developer like priority in bidding. And I do think that the missing middle is like a major part of our local housing crisis. And you'll find a lot of projects in the Denver metro area that targets this demographic, at least in terms of like land trusts and the like. And so it's not that I want to see more red tape. I would have liked to see maybe a broader scoring matrix, if you will. And I also think that in terms of equity and just good land use policy, that mixed developing housing development projects are beneficial in that way. I didn't provide specific feedback over the last month about what's before us, and I'm owning that. But it was in part because I felt I didn't have a complete picture of our current real estate portfolio, for lack of a better term. And I know in the past, like, we would get a yearly report, not just a line item about an general assets under real estate, but more granular, like leases, profit, and that sort of thing. And I was just wondering if, and I think it piggybacks on what Vice Chair Banker, I believe, requested or mentioned. Is that something that the board could start seeing again, as well as just an updated property list? And actually, I apologize, that might have been Director O'Keefe, but so that was my comment question. I'm also, I would understand if staff needed to follow up with us via memo. Thanks.
Right. I think that's great for follow-up. So we'll get an answer from our general manager, CEO, and appropriate staff on that list. Okay. I apologize. I know there are more hands raised, but members of the committee and the public, it is 7:46. We do need to take a 10-minute break for our transcriptionist. So I'm going to ask for the vote here and move this on so we can take that break. Is that acceptable, Director Nicholson and Director Larson, or do I need to wait and return to more comments and questions on this? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on your screen, please.
Just
to move to a vote.
On the item or on to take a break?
On the item, because we need to take a break for the transcriptionist. So is there anything that is so pressing right now it's going to affect the vote that you need from staff, or can we vote? All right. I'm going to call the vote then. Give me a moment to get to the list. One moment, please. Vice Chair Banker.
Yes.
Director Catlin.
Yes.
Director Geisinger.
Yes.
Director Larson.
No.
I apologize, I skipped one. Director Guchenritter. Maybe he fell off. Okay.
Director Guzman, this
Yes.
is Jack Kroll. He had to step away, so he'll be recorded as away.
Okay. Away. Thank you. Director O'Keefe.
Yes.
I am Director Guzman, and my vote would be a yes. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, 1 no, and 1 director away at the time of the vote. We will adjourn at 7:48 and return at 7:58 to complete our last recommended item. Thank you. 1 minute warning. All right, let's go ahead and begin the recording. It is 7:59 p.m. We will pick up our meeting where we left off. Our third and final action is for the security operations budget transfer. For the Board of Directors to approve a budget transfer of $3,845,437.10 between operating expense lines for transit security services. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, O'Keefe. Oh, Matt, let Larson have it.
I heard the movement as Director Catlin and the second as Director Larson. All right. Once again, I would like to ask our General Manager CEO to introduce this item to the committee. Madam CEO.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As relates to this budget item or this board item, excuse me, if you look at package page 73, you will see it has a clear-cut nexus with an agenda item that will come before Operations Safety and Security meeting tomorrow. This basically is a budget line transfer as relates to our current security contract with Allied Universal. The reason I call that out specifically is 2 months ago, we came before Operations Safety and Security Committee as we were looking for approval for a summary scope of work, recognizing the discussion and actions that ensued during the course of that meeting. We need to do a 1-year extension with our current contractor. There are monies that are allocated, as you may recall. Here, when you look at this board report, it specifies there is a line item within rail operations, and then there was money within the transit security line item. Rail operations for the aspect of having second crew members. I wanted to specify that going forward because we need additional time, as we discussed when this was last brought before the Operations Safety and Security Committee as relates to our procurement. So with that, that concludes my report. In reference to this money has been programmed or allocated in the appropriated, excuse me, in the 2025 budget due to the fact that we are requesting a delegation of authority to me to move money from the rail operations budget to the transit security budget. There is no impact overall to the budget. It's just moving the monies from one place to another as we endeavor to do something with the successor security contract moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the committee, are there any questions or comments on this recommended action? Director Nicholson, your hand is raised. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Guzman. I just wanted to say, since we're talking about security, to praise the work of our security team tonight at DUS that responded extremely quickly to the issue of the suspicious package that took place during this meeting, and the speed with which they cleared the facilities and then got everything up and running again. And I thought that was very impressive, and a number of my friends felt that way as well. So I think we're making good investments in security, and I appreciate that we're doing this.
Thank you, Director Nicholson. Any other questions? Comments? All right. As this is in line with our strategic initiative of welcoming environment and ensuring the safety of the public on our rail system and our public transit system overall, I am grateful for the opportunity to be able to make this decision. So with no further, Director Nicholson, your hand is still raised. Did you have more to add? Thank you. With seeing no other hands raised, I will call for a vote. Are there any no votes on this item? Seeing no votes, it looks like that is 6 yeses and 1 director away at the current time. We will move that to the board. With 1 director being away, Mr. Kroll, that does go on to the unanimous consent agenda. All right, there we go. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your participation, directors, and helping move the meeting along. We have no discussion items this evening, so we can move on to other matters. Are there any other matters to discuss? Vice Chair Banker, your hand is raised. Please proceed.
Hey, first of all, I apologize for the barking in the background. But if I am doing this correctly, Mr. Chair, please let me know if I need to change the way I'm presenting this. I would like to ask for 2 items for our committee to review, talk about, have a discussion for the next Finance Committee. And those 2 items, the first one would be Broncos Ride and other special event projects that we have, like Boulder or Red Rocks or those kinds of things. And then the second one, when I was talking this past week with Director Larson, he had raised an issue and he got me thinking, and that was, is it possible, and it'd be nice to have a discussion on this, is it possible to move the comprehensive analysis that we begin it this year instead of next year? So those are the 2 items. Not quite sure, do we need to vote on that, or can I just make a request to put that on the agenda? What would be the proper procedure?
Well, as this is falling under other matters, I am going to look at fellow directors that are on this committee to send me an email, 2 items, special event service, and then if it's possible to move the COA conversation or the action on the COA, which just for clarification, Director Banker, sorry, Vice Chair Banker.
Well, my first choice would be action, but perhaps we should have a discussion first.
Okay. Madam CEO, your hand went up. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Treasurer Banker, for your comments. The one thing that I would just ask for everyone's edification, as it relates to a comprehensive operational analysis, it would be quite difficult for us to actually commence with a comprehensive operational analysis in the calendar year of 2025. Recognizing that coming before the Operation and Safety Security Committee, there will be an update relative to the work that has been done on what has been branded as the System Optimization Plan. Those inputs relative to where the agency is will be used to frame a scope of work that will be leveraged for an open and fair competition relative to a solicitation. Considering the manner in which that is developed and the time in which we would put that out of procurement, it's not realistic that that would be something that would be readily available to commence in the calendar year of 2025. It's more in alignment with commencing in the beginning of no later than the first quarter of 2026. So I just wanted to share that for everybody's edification. Thank you.
All right. Knowing that, this is what I would ask. I saw your hands go up really quickly. Do you want to have this conversation here? Thumbs up, thumbs down, shake your head, something, so we can figure out the work calendar for this committee. Okay, I'm seeing yeses. So Director Nicholson, your hand was up next. Please proceed if it's about this subject. If not, I can skip to Director Catlin, whose hand went up immediately after yours.
We'll wait until we are done talking about Director Banker's questions. I have something else to talk about.
Okay, thank you. Director Catlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, GM CEO Johnson kind of addressed some of the concerns that I was going to raise about this, but would ask that we consider looking into those items for this committee's work plan in the future. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Noted. Director Rusha, your hand was up next. Oh, sorry. Is it about this or something else?
Actually, I have lost track if we are talking about the first or second part of Director Banker's inquiry. I had comments on both. I don't know which order we're in. I'm sorry.
We're discussing Director Banker's suggestion for the work plan update. So one is special service, second is comprehensive operational analysis. So please go ahead.
Thank you. So I did want to say regarding special services, this also came up during the retreat with OSS, and I did have some conversation with staff, and I think I won't speak for all the committee members, but one of the reasons why we didn't specifically add it to the work plan was because we felt it was like in a preliminary fact-finding stage, if you would. So like, for example, the question of running service on New Year's Eve later than midnight, that would require a significant analysis of staffing resources, where would we run that service, and et cetera. And so I just wanted to just flag, I think our committee would be also happy to continue the conversation, or maybe it's but I would also be fine. I think we'd be fine if it was in this committee too. There was just, I think, general interest in what do we need to know before we could even discuss those types of potential services just relative to our budget and resources. So I felt like I wanted to just disclose that transparency. And then please call me out of order, Mr. Chair, because I'm getting a little bit lost, but the relative to the COA, and this is where I might be ignorant or misread something. My understanding is that this year we're doing like preliminary work, because obviously this is going to involve several counties and over 40 jurisdictions, and I didn't know if that was something that GM CEO Johnson could address and correct me if I was wrong. That would help me get a better picture.
Madam CEO.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. I had my hand go up as well. It's within the board's purview to decide where different items are heard, but keeping in mind when we talk about a comprehensive operational analysis, we're talking about current operations as opposed to a planning exercise going forward. So relative to the question that Director Rusha just raised, as relates to where we are when we talk about the preliminary information, considering this agency prior to the system optimization plan had not done a comprehensive operational analysis because the agency was in the process of building out its network, and things were done in more or less a segmented fashion. The notion behind the COA and the action at which the action that the board had taken in 2022, adhering, or I should say, supporting staff's advice, is that we look at this on a triennial basis, recognizing that within operations, safety, and security, we are looking at various aspects to ensure that we have appropriate policies and or procedures in place for the betterment of how we are planning and delivering transit services that are conducive to, i.e. looking at land use relative to our operating environment, ensuring that we're taking into consideration access to various activity centers and things of the like. That's what we have planned already at OSS in July to help inform those different policies, i.e. service monitoring, service standards as we go forward. That would be the jump off point as we look to further refine a scope of work that would lead us to a successor, for lack of a better term, comprehensive operational analysis. So Director Rusha, you are on point. That's what we had discussed collectively when we were talking about the path forward and what we would do as an agency to ensure that we were doing this with some frequency and there were certain elements that would come to fruition. This needs to be done with regular cadence, hence the triennial aspect of it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Larson, were your comments regarding this?
I just wanted to mention that I was reading the bill, Senate Bill 25-161, and I did read that there's a section where it says that we're supposed to, that at least the way I read it, and maybe if somebody knows better, they can comment, that we're supposed to do a comprehensive operational analysis no later than April 10th, 2026. So I don't know how or if that fits into the current timing or if we really have to do that, but that was in the bill that I think just passed and either has been or will be signed.
Madam CEO.
Yes, thank you very kindly for that comment, Director Larson. Staff, of course, is clear on that, considering that bill drafters used a term that wasn't reflective of what a COA is as we go forward. Basically, is the understanding we need to commence when we talk about doing a COA. A full-fledged COA is an iterative process that goes forward. So for all intents and purposes, in my previous response, when I stated that with anything that we would basically be in a place to have a COA underway. It's not something succinct as we go forward because there's a multitude of engagement quite naturally as we work with entities such as our MPO that is outlined in statute relative to the various aspects around DRCOG serving as our planning organization, leveraging different aspects and working with municipalities. So while it is in statute, quite naturally, it said conduct a COA. There's no way this agency can comprehend that. And I look at us as being the experts in this realm, considering that that was something that wasn't occurring here at this agency. So working with the legislature quite naturally as we go forward and informing them about what it takes to do a COA, this isn't sort of a plug and play, for lack of a better term. So thank you.
To this matter, Vice Chair Banker, I am a big fan of getting a COA done as well. And I have been for some time as a member of this board. So I do see relevance in having the conversation. However, given that it is already something that is outlined for the work in the Operations, Safety, and Security Committee, this is where our committees have nexus. And I think Chair Rusha on OSS and I had previously discussed this as something that would shuffle back and forth at different points between both the Finance Committee and with regard to finances and planning long-term, but also the operational pieces that belong properly in her committee. And so I'm happy to engage in conversation at the right time, and we can certainly add it to our calendar when it is appropriate to take action to advise the full board. I have no problem with that. I think everybody would agree that that's probably the appropriate way to proceed, but as it is already on their work plan, we might allow them to do their part of the work first and then pick it up when we need to do ours. That just seems fair to trust them to do their part and we be entrusted to do ours. Director Larson, was there further commentary on this? Okay, sorry, just double checking. Your hand is raised, so go ahead, Vice Chair Banker.
With regard to the comprehensive analysis, I'm just suggesting that we start the process. It just seems to me, okay, that so many things have changed over the past couple of years. You know, we went into a pandemic. We're going through a growth spurt. I think in terms of apartment building, I see apartments all over, new apartments being built all over the region, especially up here in my area. And it just seems like the process which I have not been through previously. It just seems like the process is going to take a long time. So why not start? That's my question. You know, whatever needs to be done, if we have to start an RFP or whatever, getting public input, you know, no time like the present. Thank you.
So are we going to get a request for a line item transfer or fund transferring out so that an RFQ can be put out? I'm just like, we have to move it out of this committee if we get it. So we're going to hold ourselves
Well,
to
I
that
have no
responsibility.
idea how much this would cost. In fact, I would love to have our own staff do most of it since they're the experts with regard to routes and trips. But more information on this and the general process, I think, would be helpful.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a wonderful direction to go in. Madam CEO.
Yes, thank you so much. And Treasurer Banker, thank you for that. I know I provided a response, but I want to assure you that we're aligned as we go forward, recognizing that I indicated starting in July, recognizing where we are with the SOP, we will be using that as a springboard to develop a scope to put that out. So I just wanted to ensure that there's alignment in reference to what you're saying as well with what I'm trying to communicate. So I think it may have fallen flat, but I want you to know that we support that as well going forward. So thank you.
All right. Director Larson, is it for this matter or something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say in relation to this matter that it's not just when we start, it's also how fast it can happen. You know, I know Director Guzman, you and I had a conversation, I think it was at the retreat, about the many steps that have to be taken in order to complete the COA. And you know, if there was a discussion about, you know, especially given that I guess it's a little bit unclear, but the legislature seems to arguably have said they want this completed by April 10th. If trying to honor their wishes or come close to them, we could skip some steps to speed it up. That might be helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. I wouldn't want to skip any steps regardless. I think it's too important. And with 15 sub-districts in the region, being able to do a comprehensive, holistic view of what's going on, we really do need to get the public engagement and feedback piece correctly. As a functional piece of providing good service, that's where we get the plan that we would go forward with for service provision and service delivery, especially given demographics and everything else that we've discussed tonight, and with respect to financing. That's why it's a complicated, complex process, but sounds like we are moving in that direction. And so where there are opportunities to expedite and move with a sense of urgency, I believe our staff will hold our feet to the fire as a board to do our part, but we can certainly request the same in return and get that done correctly. All right, committee members, please email me directly about this conversation. Any thoughts that you have so I can compile them, and I will work with Vice Chair Banker moving forward and make any necessary adjustments that are in line with where staff's timelines are for this committee to consider going forward. I have no objection to that. I think it's important. With respect to special services, I didn't really talk about that. I do want to say this. The FTA's charter service regulations, for your research purposes, please note this. It is 49 CFR Part 604. Let's begin there and be informed about what the service regulations are within the district, as we are a recipient of federal funds and there are rules around it. And I would also look to staff, Madam CEO, and the planning division about what a policy could look like that we may be able to bring forward with respect to providing special services within the regional transportation district. But that really should come from the experts here, and we can make sure that we approve any such policy going forward and include it in planning. Go ahead, Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. And just for clarification, it's service planning, not long-range planning, as relates to as
Thank
we,
you.
yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to punt that back over to my friend, Chair Rusha on OSS. But when it comes to paying for it, she's going to punt it back to us, and we will have to figure that out in our budget. So, all right. Director Nicholson, your hand was up for another matter. Go ahead.
Yes, it was. I'll also just say we love talking about special services over at OSS. But with regard to what I wanted to address, I know equity is important to all of you. And so I just wanted to flag that I'll be offering an amendment at the board meeting to add language about deeply affordable TOD units that the median RTD rider can afford. I've reached out to staff already for input and wanted to invite any of you who want to collaborate with me on that language to connect over email. I think that, I'm not a fan of drafting this stuff in a vacuum, but I think it is deeply, deeply important that we are pushing for TOD that our riders can afford, and want to make sure that we're talking about that at the board meeting and have some language ready to go. So thanks.
So thank you for that heads up, but also please get that out to us as soon as possible because the last minute changes really, really do not do well in our board meetings. So anything we can do to make sure that we have staff and director consensus around it, I'm sure would help out our board chair, who is fulfilling his duties as a teacher with his projects with video tonight. I believe it's the film festival for him. So, I would be remiss if I did not say that as a help to my friend leading the body. Are there any other matters for discussion at this time? All right, thank you all so much. I appreciate you all getting your homework done as always and coming prepared to have good conversation. I apologize if I stepped on anybody's toes. I certainly didn't mean to. It is difficult to manage the time on these meetings with respect to public input, commentary, and doing the work in the public realm. So I just wanted to thank you all for your participation and for your awesome ability to keep things moving forward. Director Nicholson, your hand is still raised. Is there another matter? Thank you. All right. Seeing no other hands and no other additional matters to discuss, our next meeting date is June 10th of 2025. We are scheduled for that Tuesday meeting to have a recommended action related to transit-oriented development at Central Park, as well as a couple of discussion items, including the mid-year financial update and an update on the 2026 budget development. June is going to be a busy month. Directors, keep an eye on your email. We should be getting requests to submit information back to Chair Bouquet at his request and enter into our retreat as well, so we can move other processes forward that are going to be decided by the board. Director Banker, you're on mute.
Real quick, the report that is due to the state legislature is July 1st. I thought the June meeting we were going to be reviewing the finishing fast tracks report. Is that also on the agenda?
Madam CEO.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Treasurer, in light of the legislation, Senate Bill 161, that date has been changed. I plan to send out a communique relative to where we are because there's different requirements. That date is now December 1. I will be sending a communique so all board members have an understanding what the path forward is. Staff just met as related to these elements today. I have a follow-up with them and we'll be communicating accordingly. Moreover, the communication that Mr. Davies sent out relative to the various legislation did indicate that that date changed, and that was transmitted to everybody on Friday. Thank you.
Okay. So our work plan has changed because the legislation has changed. But we will update it and we will get it out to everybody as soon as possible. I know it is of keen interest to you, Director Banker, and we will definitely have that conversation. All right. Seeing no other discussion, this meeting is adjourned. 8:26 p.m. Go Nuggets. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.